All right, shalom, shalom. Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai, Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai, Barakath Yahweh, Barakath Yahweh Shai. Call Halayim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, better known as Great Millstone, who taught me this truth. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect. Okay, the tabernacle of David that's scattered across the four corners of the earth amongst the heathen that look like the heathen, okay, who we know as the speckled bird. And I'm your brother Matazatbath checking in. And the title of this video is going to be, all right, which were called not a people, the Gentiles. And this seems to be a very controversial topic pertaining to a lot of Christian pastors that are now coming out of the woodworks trying to defend their doctrine that they've been taught from these seminary schools, that salvation is universal for all people and not just the Jews. So I want to start here in Romans the 11th chapter, as I have highlighted here. We're going to read it both in the King James Version and also the NLT. And the Spirit hopped on me to just, go through this, bring out some precepts, and, so we can go into the actual true understanding of whom Paul, the Apostle Paul, that is, was actually referring to. Now, keep in mind that word Gentile in the New Testament, all right, goes back to the Greek word ethnos. And if you're reading the Greek Septuagint, you will not find that word Gentile, as it is a universal word that was added in. Okay, so I have a video that I'm going to put in the post-production from the beloved Elder Yashawamba from the branch of the Great Millstone in Dallas, who's going to, in this video, he goes through an actual little small PDF printout of the word Gentile. Okay, but let's get some precepts. Let's go through this because I know a lot of you guys, you may have known this, but you probably don't know the depths of it to be able to connect all the pieces together. So Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, I can do that for you here in this video. But this is Romans chapter 11. We're going to read it in the King James Version. It says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, what we have to establish early on is the prophecy, okay, stated that the tents of Judah had to be risen first, which the tents of Judah represents the southern kingdom, being Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which were called the Jews. Okay. The problem that we have in the Christianity church is anytime you use the word Jew within the New Testament, okay, they seem to think that that word Jew is talking about all of Israel, which it's not. Okay. The word Jew comes from the word Judah, and it's only dealing with the tribes Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because those were the main tribes during the time of around the Babylonian Empire, when the northern kingdom, okay, which was called Ephraim, all right, had already left to travel to another land where they can keep the law, statutes, and commandments pertaining to 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, starting at verse 40. So what ended up happening was that word was placed on them going as far back as the Babylonian Empire. Okay, that word Jew. All right, when you go into secular history, and it's only pertaining to the three tribes. So to prove that, let's go to prove that the prophecy had to start with the tents of Judah. We're going to go to Zechariah chapter 12 and verse 7. It says, the Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. What is this saying? That means Yahweh, through his son Yahweh Shai, when Yahweh Shai came on the scene, he had to speak to Judah first, because why? Judah is the head tribe. Okay, which is the circumcision. So a lot of, Christian pastors like to say he came into his own and his own received him not. So that's why he had to go to the Gentiles, not understanding what that precept actually means, which we're going to grab in John, the first chapter. But let's read this in the NLT. It says, the Lord will give victory to the rest of Judah first. That's the prophecy, meaning they had to be preached the gospel. That's the reason why when Yahweh Shai came back on the scene, who did he go to first? He went to the circumcision. Okay. And keep in mind, it also tells us in Hebrews, the 7th chapter, verse 14, to be exact, that Yahweh Shah sprang forth out of the tribe of Judah. Okay. It says before Jerusalem, which represents the northern kingdom, so that the people of Jerusalem and the royal line of David will not have greater honor than the rest of Judah. Why? Because Judah is the head tribe. So this was the order pertaining to the prophecy that the Jews have to be risen up first. Okay. And let's get an example of that. Let's go to Acts. Okay. Because what did Paul say? Let's get Acts chapter 13 and verse 47. Okay. Well, let's take our time with this. 46, Salakia. 46 and 47. It says, then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said it was necessary that the word of the Most High should first have been spoken to you, talking about the circumcision. Why? Because we just read in Zechariah, the 12th chapter, the tents of Judah had to be risen first. So, they had to speak to those of the circumcision. But listen what Paul says. He says, but seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles, okay? Which is the main topic. Who is the Gentiles that Paul is referring to, pertaining to Romans, the 11th chapter, all right? So, Salakia, let's go to verse 47. It says, for so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be salvation unto the ends of the earth, which goes back to Isaiah, the 49th chapter, which is another controversy verse that the pastors love to pull out to say that salvation is not only for the Jews, but it's open universally to everyone, which that's not what the scriptures is talking about. Okay. So from there, let's go to John, the first chapter. And let's pull out that precept that they love to run to all the time. We'll start at verse 10. King James Version says, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. Okay, which is talking about the circumcision. All right, remember Zechariah 12 and 7. All right, the tents of Judah had to be pretty much preach the gospel first. But read the very next verse, verse 12. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. Now, in the scriptures, if you search, see if I can find it. I know it's in the book of Acts, right? Acts 14 and 1. And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together in the synagogue of the Jews, and so spake that a great multitude, both of the Jews and also of the Greeks, believed. Okay, now the Greeks, okay, when you go into that word Greek, I believe it's the Greek word Helen, which means Israelites, okay, that pretty much were living in a Gentile state of mind. They didn't know that they were Israelites, okay? John 8 and 31 at the top, it says, then said Yahweh Shah to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed. So what these Christian pastors fail to realize is when it says in John, the first chapter, that he came into his own, but his own received him not, Yes, certain of the scribes and Pharisees rejected him, but you still had other Jews that actually believed on him. Okay, it's not talking about that every single Jew around that time, that because even when you go to John the third chapter, you had Nicodemus, who was a Jew. He believed on Yahweh Shai, right? John 12 and 11, because that by reason of him, many of the Jews went away and believed on Yahweh Shai. So that's a cut. You still had other, even though majority of the scribes and Pharisees rejected the doctrine of Yahweh Shai, you still had a number of those Jews that actually believed on him, right? So now from there, let's read Romans 11 one more time, okay? And let's read it in the NLT. It says, did God's people stumble and fall beyond recovery? Of course not. They were disobedient. So the Most High made salvation available to the Gentiles, but he wanted his own people to become jealous and claim it for themselves. That's why the Pharisees, the scribes and stuff was so heavily into having the law as their righteousness instead of having faith in Yahweh Shai. Okay, so the Heavenly Father set it up this way to make them jealous. This is why he said in Deuteronomy to Moses. Now let's go to the actual prophecy. Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 20 in the King James Version. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not the Most High. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Okay. So once again, this can be taken out of context if you don't understand the history in order to know the mystery of the scriptures. Let's read it in the NLT. It says, he said, I will abandon them, then see what becomes of them. For they are a twisted generation, children without integrity. They have roused my jealousy by worshiping things that are not of the Most High. They have provoked my anger with their useless idols. Now I will rouse their jealousy through people who are not even a people. I will provoke their anger through the foolish Gentiles. Now, is this talking about the actual Gentiles of the other heathen nations? Well, let's go to Romans, back in the New Testament, chapter 10. All right. And verse 19. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. So we can see here that Apostle Paul was quoting from Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter of what we just read. Now, when you go back a chapter in Romans, the 9th chapter, Paul clearly expounds upon who those Gentiles were. Verses 24 and 25. Let's read it. Even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, the circumcision, but also of the Gentiles. Question mark. You see that? As he saith also in Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not my beloved. Let's read that in the NLT. And we are among those whom he selected, both from the Jews and from the Gentiles. Concerning the Gentiles, this is who the Gentiles are. The Most High says in the prophecy, see, you have to go into prophecy. Okay. It says the Most High says in the prophecy pertaining to the Gentiles of Hosea, those who were not my people, I will now call my people, and I will love those whom I did not love before. OK, now Christian pastors will take this way out of context and say, well, this is talking about the heathen nations because the Most High never loved them. No, this is not what this is talking about. Let's get the actual context of what Hosea was talking about. Let's get Hosea chapter 1 and verse 10. Actually, we'll start at verse 9. Then said the Most High, call his name Laomi, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your power. Read it in the NLT. Who's that? Who's called the no people? Verse 9 at the top. And the Lord said, name him Laomi, not my people, for Israel is not my people, and I am not their power. So the context being established here was Israel was called not a people. Why were we called not a people? Go to Jeremiah, the third chapter, okay, in verse 18. Because what happened to us? We'll start at verse 17. Let's see here. Is that what? Actually, Salaki, no. Verse 8. And it reads, and I saw, wherefore all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and giving her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. Right? Let's read it in the NLT. She saw that I divorced faithless Israel because of her adultery, but that treacherous sister Judah had no fear, and now she too has left me and given herself to prostitution. So this is where it started. The Heavenly Father cast out Israel for a short period of time, but his intentions never was to do away with us, because he had to keep the promise that he gave to our forefather Abraham. Okay. And we are known as the inheritance of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So now going back to Hosea. Oops, Salakia. Let's go back to Hosea. Sometimes this app closes out on purpose. So let's read Hosea 1 and 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, and what place is that talking about? Okay, mainly the Americas, because we were scattered there, scattered over there, but also wherever else the Israelites are scattered today across the four corners of the earth. Okay, so in the areas where we are scattered, okay, it shall be said unto us, ye are not my people. That's the context, Israel. There, meaning the place, okay, where the bulk of the tribes are in America, and also wherever else we're scattered, there in those particular places, it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. Let's read it in the NLT. It says, yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then at the place where they were told, you are not my people, it will be said, you are the children of the living God. That's why you have the apostles, the elders, the bishops, the teachers out there on the highways and byways giving the message to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that you are the biblical Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Okay? That's all it's talking about. Now let's go to Hosea chapter 2. Okay? And verse 23. All right, same context. And I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. And I will say to them, which were not my people, the Israelites, thou art my people, and they shall say, thou art my power. Let's read it in the NLT. This is beautiful. Verse 23. At that time, I will plant a crop of Israelites and raise them for myself. It's talking about the elect. And I will show love to those I call not love, and to those I call not my love, not my people. I will say, now you are my people, and they will reply, you are my power. This is the reason why he sent Yahushai to be the mediator to redeem us. Let's grab that. Let's go to the New Testament in the book of Galatians, the 4th chapter, starting at verse 4. But when the fullness of the time, Salakia, was come, the Most High sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. This is who the letter was written to, right? Let's read it in the NLT. It was written to the children of Israel. But when the right time came, the Most High sent his son, born of a woman subject to the law. The Most High sent him to buy freedom for us who were slaves to the law, so that he could adopt us as his very own children. Because who was under the law? Let's get a precept. Psalms 147, verses 19 and 20. It says, he showeth his word unto Jacob, and his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, meaning the other heathen nations were never under the law. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. Read it in the NLT. He has revealed his words to Jacob, his decrees and regulations to Israel. He has not done this for any other nation. They do not know his regulations. Praise ye the Lord. So if you are a Christian pastor, the question will be, how can universal salvation be opened up to everyone to be grafted back in if only one people was only given the law, statutes, commandments to be redeemed back? Because if you were never given the law, statutes, commandments, if you've never sinned, which you can only sin if you're under the law, how can you be redeemed back to something you were never once a part of? Showing you that this is not that those Gentiles were not talking about the other nations. It was talking about the Israelites that were pretty much living in a Gentile state of mind. And during that time in the ancient Roman Empire, the ones of the circumcision looked down upon the ones of the uncircumcision, which were those other Israelites who were not keeping the customs. OK, and we're going to get that. So let's go back. All right. To the New Testament. Let's go back to Galatians, the 4th chapter. All right. And when you drop down to verse 20, I think it's 28. Yep. This is how you know who Apostle Paul was talking about, because Christians love to run to the book of Galatians, mainly the 3rd chapter, to put a stamp on it and say, this is how you know that universal salvation is for everyone. But this proves who it was actually written to, the book of Galatians, Galatians 4 and 28. Now we brethren, key word brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of the promise. Read it in the NLT. And you, dear brothers and sisters, are the children of the promise, just like Isaac. Is it talking about everyone? No. Who is Paul's brethren? Let's go to Romans chapter 9, reading verses 3 and 4. It says, for I could wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach, for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites. That's who Paul was addressing in Galatians. OK, when he wrote the letter to the Galatians, he was writing it to Israelites that were scattered within Galatia. It says, to whom pertaineth the adoption. Did we not just read that in Galatians, the 4th chapter, the adoptions of sons? Yahweh Shah redeemed us. It says in the glory, which is the kingdom of heaven, in the covenants, plural, because we were under the first covenant. And right now we're under grace, but we're going to be, when Yahweh Shai comes back to redeem the elect, OK, the new covenant is going to be placed within our inward part. And the giving of the law, OK, Psalms 147 that we just read, verses 19 and 20. And the service of the Most High, because why? We are priests. We are the priesthood. And the promises, which goes back to whom? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. OK, now the service of the Most High, to prove that, we can go to let's go to 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. Showing you who this was talking about. It says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Who did the priesthood originally started with? The Israelites through Aaron and his sons. And holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Now watch this, verse 10, which in time past were not a people, going back to Hosea, the first chapter. Okay, Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter, to provoke them to jealousy by another nation that is called a no people. Okay, a foolish nation that will pretty much call it the Gentiles. This is talking about the Israelites. We were a no people because we had gotten that bill of divorcement, but are now the people of the Most High through who? Yahweh Shai, because he did what? In Galatians, the 4th chapter, redeemed us back as the adoption of sons. We are now known as the sons of the living power, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. So when you go back to verse 9, okay, let's read it in the NLT. But you are not like that, for you are a chosen people. You are a royal priest, a holy nation, God's very own possession. Now, the Christian church should say this is just talking about everybody who believes. Well, no, because you got to go back to the Old Testament. Who was known as the peculiar people? Let's get Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5 and 6. It says, now, therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Mic drop, case in point. You can't get around it. So that's who Peter addressed in 1 Peter 2, verses 9 and 10. Those were those no people. They were Israelites, right? They were Israelites. So let's, Salakia, let me go back to my history. Lose my train of thought. So you guys have to understand, when you put the precepts together, okay, you start to get a general understanding as to who, okay, Apostle Paul's letter was to. Now let's read Romans 9 and 4 again. It says, they are the people of Israel chosen to be God's adopted children. Going back to Galatians, the 4th chapter. The Most High revealed his glory to them. He made covenants with them and gave them his law. He gave them the privilege of worshiping him, receiving his wonderful promises. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are their ancestors, and Hamashiach himself was an Israelite as far as his human nature is concerned. And he is the Most High, the one who rules. Salakia, he is a power, the one who rules over everything and is worthy of eternal praise. Amen. That's all it's talking about. It's not talking about everybody can get salvation. Now, to prove that you had the circumcision versus the uncircumcision, okay, when you go to the book of Acts, and I believe it's the 15th chapter, okay, this is the cause of that. It says, and certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. Why is that? Because the Pharisees, they looked down upon those Israelites that were uncircumcised. Now, those Israelites, okay, that were uncircumcised, how did they become uncircumcised? Well, you got to go back into history. We're going to go to First Maccabees, the 1st chapter, starting at verse 11. Okay, you have to go back in history. It says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so froward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised. This is what the Israelites did back then during the Greek Empire. They made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. You see? Now, when you drop down to verse 40, 41, this is what the king Antiochus wrote in terms of a decree that he wanted to put out to all the people, including the Jews. It says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom, the kingdom of the Greeks, that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, here it is, verse 43, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. Okay, now drop down to verse 48 at the top. It says that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. Okay, that's what they did. So you have a total of 430 plus years of history, okay, that is not taught in the churches. So when you get to the New Testament, okay, when you type in uncircumcision, I might have spelled it wrong. Okay. Galatians 2:7. But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me as the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter. So basically what Paul is saying here, okay, what you guys have to understand, Paul was of the circumcision because he was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. This is why Yahweh Shai selected Paul, because Paul was not only well conversed in the law, but he also used Paul because Paul spoke other languages. Okay. And Paul was taught directly under Yahweh Shai. And Peter was left in charge to speak to the circumcision, which was those Pharisees and everything else like that. OK, but the uncircumcision was those Israelites. OK, going back to what we read in First Maccabees. OK, that followed after that decree that Antiochus put out. OK, so imagine from, passing down to your kids, they're coming up in the Greek traditions, the Greek customs, which is called back then Hellenization. That's why when you look up the word Greek, it goes back to the word Hellen. OK, those were Israelites that were brought up within the customs of the Greeks. OK, speaking Greek and all of that. But then you had the Hellenistes, which in Acts the 6th chapter, which you want to grab after this, which were Israelites that knew that they were Greek, but they were still practicing the customs and stuff like that. Right. So it says here, that's why it tells you. All right. Ephesians 2:11. Wherefore remember that ye being in times past Gentiles in the flesh, talking about those Israelites who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision. This is why we read in Acts the 15th chapter, those certain men that came down to Judea said, except ye be circumcised, ye cannot be saved. Because the circumcision, the ones who kept the law during the time of the Maccabees, okay, when you get to the ancient Roman Empire, when they were around those Israelite foreigners that didn't grow up within the law and the custom, they looked down upon them because they were uncircumcised. That's what it's talking about. Okay, those Jews that were keeping the law, statutes, commandments, okay, when they came around the Israelites, okay, that were keeping the heathen and Greek customs, that's why those Israelites were called heathens. They were called Gentiles. It wasn't talking about the other nations. Right? Let's read it again. Ephesians 2:11. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh. Why? Because they were worshiping other idols. Okay. Going all the way back to the decree that Antiochus put out. Okay. Everybody should become one. Okay. Everybody should leave off after the laws of their fathers and become like the Greeks. That's why now when you go to Galatians, okay, let's go to Galatians real quick, 3 and verse, what is it, 28? Yeah, this is why Paul says there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach. He was talking about those Israelites that were in Galatia, because you had Israelites that knew that they were Israelites and Jews, but you also had Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites. They just considered themselves to be Greek. Now, when you go into that word Greek, which should be, Helen, okay, it says a Greek either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, okay, that made the language, customs, and learning of the Greeks their own. Did we not just read that in First Maccabees, the first chapter? You had wicked Israelites that made the language, the customs, and everything their own. That was the whole reason why Judas Maccabees and his brothers, they kept the traditions, and they went against the Greek kingdom. That's why they were fighting. That's why we have today that's called the Feast of Tabernacles, okay, Hanukkah. Okay, when you read First Maccabees, the fourth chapter, it goes into that. When we started taking down all the strongholds of the Idumeans and everything, right? But that's another lesson for a different day. So you had Israelites that were Hellen. They were Hellenized. Okay. They were Hellenized. All right. And the only way you'll understand that is if you read the Maccabees. You got to go into the history. So going back to Acts, the 15th chapter, let's read it again. And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. Okay, because they looked down upon those Israelites that were uncircumcised. They were the Gentiles. Now, when you drop down to the letter that the elders got, okay, let's see here. Straight to the point. Now, when Paul and Barnabas went to inquire of the elders, who were Jews, okay, because remember, those elders that are Jews, they know the law. And they know that the law was not given to the other heathen nations, as we read in Psalms 147. Now, listen to what they wrote in the letter. Verse 19, wherefore my sentence is that we trouble them not, meaning those Israelites that were called Gentiles, okay, which from among the Gentiles are turned to the Most High, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols and from fornication and from things strangled, and from blood, because that's what they were doing. Okay, that's why the circumcision, the Jews looked down upon those Israelites that were not circumcised. Read it in the NLT. And so my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles, those Israelite foreigners who are turning to the Most High. Instead, we shall write and tell them to abstain from eating food offered to idols, from sexual immorality, and from eating the meat of strangled animals, and from consuming blood, which all goes back to the law, which you can find in the book of Leviticus. You see? Verse 21, for these laws of Moses have been preached in Jewish synagogues in every city on every Sabbath for many generations. That's who, see? Going back to the law wasn't for everyone. So clearly, who is he talking to within the context of this? Within the context, okay, of this chapter. Let's read down. We're still in the NLT, verse 23. This is the letter they took with them. This letter is from the apostles and elders, your brothers in Jerusalem. Your brothers in Jerusalem. It is written to the Gentile believers, meaning to the Israelite foreigners who didn't know that they were Israelites, but they believed in the word. In Antioch, Syria, Cilicia, greetings. We understand that some men from here have troubled you and upset you with their teaching, but we did not send them. You see, that was the whole controversy. That's why they got on Yahweh Shai, and they was like, how can you sit in the midst of these people that are Gentiles, heathens, publicans, extortioners, all of that, because you had some of that amongst the Jews. OK, but when the time came for the gospel to be preached to the rest of the Israelites, that's why Yahweh Shah said in John, the 10th chapter, and, Yahweh Ratazah, this lesson is you're being edified. But what did he say? John 10:16, and other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Because pertaining to the scriptures, there's only one nation among the 18 nations mentioned in the Bible that was considered the sheep, and that was Israel. So Yahweh Shah is clearly telling you right here, there's other sheep that is not of this fold, meaning of the circumcision, which the prophecy stated the circumcision, the tents of Judah, had to be preached the gospel first. They had to be risen up first, right? He goes on to say, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Meaning what? You still had the northern kingdom. Remember, the southern kingdom during this time in the ancient Roman Empire was the only ones that were being risen up, pertaining to Zechariah, the 12th chapter, that prophecy. So what about the other 9 tribes that had to get preached the gospel? They are included because all Israel is as lost sheep. That's why Yahweh Shai said in Matthew the 15th chapter, in verse 24, okay? But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Israel is known as the sheep. Matthew the 18th chapter, verse 11. All right. King James Version, for the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost. That's who he came for. He didn't come for the other heathen nations. So that just proves to you in the context in Romans who those Gentiles were. So let's finish it up. Romans the 9th chapter, and then read it again. And we're going to read it in the NLT. And we are among those whom he selected, both from the Jews and from the Gentiles. Concerning the Gentiles, the Most High says in the prophecy of Hosea, remember, concerning the Gentiles, in other words, this is who the Gentiles are that he's talking about. Those who were not my people, I will now call my people, and I will love those whom I did not love before. Which were who? Who was the context of what he was talking about? Go back to Hosea, which is where he quoted it from. Hosea 1:10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. Okay. Those were the Gentiles. Okay. Israelites who were in the Gentile state of mind. They had to come back to the fold. That's what it means to be regrafted back in. OK, you fell, OK, from the old covenant, but the Heavenly Father had grace because Israel is his inheritance. So they had to come back to the fold, all 12 tribes. So, Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, OK, you guys have been edified, and that, pretty much helps to glue all the pieces together when you understand the history. And look out for that post-production video that I mentioned earlier. Until next time, shalom.
And hopefully you brothers and sisters are edified. I'm going to just read through it. It says the etymology of the word Gentile. Throughout our Bible, the Greek word ethnos, okay, or ethnicity, is translated as Gentile or as nation. While Christianity today interprets the word Gentile as non-Jew, that is not what it means in the Bible. For writers of the Greek Old Testament, Septuagint, and of the New Testament, okay, ethnos meant ethnic group or race. See that? Ethnic group or race, right? It was most often a reference to our ethnic group. All right. Now, this is a so-called Jew who's writing this. All right. And he's telling the truth, but we're using it to bring out the edification. All right. For you people, because the heathen can tell the truth. Now they're off with believing that they're the true Israelites. All right. But they're right in their understanding. And a lot of these so-called Jews understand this. Okay. A lot of Edomite scholars understand this. All right. However, you Christians of today, you low-level Christians, you don't have an understanding of this. Okay. It says, our people, Israel, the lost sheep to whom Yahushua came to redeem. Okay. That's who it's talking about. That's the ethnic group the Bible was dealing with. Okay. That ethnic group made a covenant with the Most High via Moses. Okay. And Aaron, and what happened? They agreed to that, which formed a marriage, but they broke the stipulations within that covenant, all right, which led to a curse. One of the curses was to be scattered. So as you get into the New Testament, it's still speaking of Israelites, all right. However, they're likened unto Gentiles and heathen as a result of that curse. They became a no people, as we've went into in the book of Hosea. Okay, we didn't have any mercy, but now have obtained mercy through who? Hamashiach Yahushai.